Hello guys, Jacob here, and as many of you might know, last year I made a video concerning the conference held by the British Royalty Society over the inability of Darwin evolution to explain the origin and diversity of life. Okay, so over 300 scientists, world-renowned scientists, came together to discuss the inefficiencies of Darwin's theory of evolution in explaining the origin of life. So a scientist by the name of Jared Muller stood in front of this congregation. And if you don't know, the British Royalty Society was first created by Robert Boyle and was later led by Isaac Newton. So, Jared Muller went in front of this congregation of scientists and explained 3 reasons why Darwin's theory of evolution cannot explain the origin and diversity of life. Okay, so I'm just going to read off this article, and you tell me, guys, what do you think about these 3 points? So, according to Muller, the as yet unsolved problems include those of explaining the phenotypic complexity. So the theory cannot explain the complexity of life, the origin of eyes, ears, body plans, blueprints, the anatomical and structural features of living creatures. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is that the theory cannot explain the phenotypic novelty. Okay, the origin of new forms throughout the history of life. For example, the mammalian radiation some 66 million years ago, in which the major orders of mammals such as Eocene, bats, carnivores enter the fossil record. Or even more dramatically, the Cambrian explosion, with most animal body plans appearing more or less without antecedents, without precedents, without a past explanation. And finally, the non-gradual forms or modes of transition. Okay, it cannot account for the non-gradual forms or modes of transitions in the fossil record, where you see abrupt discontinuations in the fossil record between different types. Alright, so Muller brought up these arguments to this body of scientists, and many of them actually agreed with him. Okay, so a new article was written in 2018 to discuss the future impact of this conference, or the possible future impact of this conference. And as we see here, I'm going to just read off a little bit from it. Okay, and it says, in London from the 7th to the 9th of November 2016, I witnessed a groundbreaking summit at the British Royalty Society. 300 scientists from around the world gathered to evaluate a sea change in evolutionary theory. So he goes on to talk about a scientist by the name of James Shapiro, who recently wrote a book called Evolution: A View from the 21st Century. Okay, and this book is backed up by 1,100 references, scientific references, and a sterling track record, including close association with Nobel Prize winner Barbara McClintock and his own discovery that bacteria engineer their own DNA. His book made it clear. It's time to turn evolutionary theory upside down and inside out. Shapiro was arguing neither for creationism nor for intelligent design. Rather, he was arguing that natural genetic engineering, and indeed the cell itself, are the stars of the evolution show. Okay, so he's completely refuting the basis of natural selection being the cause of diversification in animals, and claiming that the cell itself has a natural genetic engineering capability. So what exactly is he saying here? He's telling us that natural selection, random mutation, or a mutation guided by nature are not sufficient, okay, in explaining Darwin's theory of evolution, but instead he's trying to replace that notion with this idea that bacteria can engineer themselves. So instead of accrediting this genetic ingenuity to an engineer, or who we would call God, he's trying to contribute this innate ability of the cell to progress, to work towards a goal, to the cell itself. So let's continue reading what he has to say. Okay. So concerning Shapiro's book, it says his book was praised by Nobel Prize winner Sidney Altman and Werner Arber. The legendary Carol Woese called it the best book on basic modern biology I have ever seen. In the press, it got mixed reviews. It was ignored by several of the major science outlets. However, it was not dismissed. It was not refuted. It made waves in the evolution community. Okay, so what I see here is a community of proponents of the evolutionary theory who are squirming. Okay, they're squirming because they see the lack of ability of the theory to account for the diversity of life. But perhaps most telling of all was the review by Larry Morin for the National Center of Science Education, aka the Darwin Lobby of the United States. So here we have someone of great prestige, the head of our science education. Okay. Morin panned it, and believe it or not, Morin actually admitted in print that he skipped reading major portions of the book. This signaled both Morin's shoddy scholarship and NCSE's true commitment to the theory, not to science but to scientism, reductionism, and the tired 70-year-old dogma. Okay, so he didn't really care. He just wanted some support for Darwin's theory of evolution. Despite scorns from Richard Dawkins and Jerry Coyne, there is no counter argument. Okay, so no one of any reputable reputation has been able to refute what he's had to say in this book. Experiments by Lynn Margulis, Eva Jablonka, David Prescott, and Mei-Wan Ho definitely prove not only do cells perform adaptations of astonishing sophistication in real time, these events are emphatically non-random. Okay, these were designed events that happen almost, I guess it happens, faster than what, the evolution theory would say that these events happen. So continuing, it says evolution has goals. Organisms have goals to meet, and they actively evolve to achieve those goals. What's being said here is that adaptations of astonishing sophistication is done according to a design, according to a systematic plan. Theists have always argued that we were never the result of blind processes or random mutations. We've always argued against that naturalistic point of view. We've always said that our body plans have always been the result of design, the result of goals, okay? But instead of contributing this engineering ingenuity to the cell itself, we contributed to a God. What has engineering always been contributed to? It's been contributed to the application of knowledge, the branches of science and technology concerned with design and building and the use of engines. Okay, so is it so far-fetched to say that this engineering capability found in our biological structure is the result of an engineer? The author goes on to argue that this somehow refutes the creationist arguments against macroevolution. He says macroevolution is not only possible, but you can witness it in real time, including complete speciation events in microbes, plants, and animals. the building and rebuilding of entire systems. Okay, but there's only one problem here. We theists do not argue against speciation, okay, or adaptation. What we say is that we don't believe that speciation is impossible, but rather that it is an innate capability found within the confines of our genetic material and the genomes of all living creatures. Where we disagree is that it somehow leads to unnecessary macro changes based on unfounded additions to the genome of living creatures that we have no evidence for, as was previously stated by the 3 points that were made against Darwin's theory of evolution. Theists, of course, contribute this to God's ingenuity, and it's how God engineered us to be. But the author of this article also points out that this empirical data demolishes the neo-Darwinian doctrine that evolution is aimless and random. Many times, radical innovations commence inside a single-cell organism, leaving natural selection little or no immediate role. Such was the case with Barbara McClintock's surprise discovery of transposition. A single plant faced with chromosome damages repaired its DNA in real time and went on to reproduce. Discoveries of this type were the focus of the Royalty Society's New Trends in Evolutionary Biology conference. But as the old school neo-Darwinists hastened to point out, none of these are new discoveries. Much of this has been known for the past 10 to 30 to 50 years. What was new at this world's oldest scientific society conference was the fact that a public quorum of 300 scientists acknowledged the centrality of these discoveries to evolution, and 2, there was no longer any room to downplay, discourage, or demean these findings. All are legit. Now, the author of this article continues putting forward evidences to support the claims made by the scientists who took part in this conference. And this article was also open to inquiry, and it had several comments, affirming or reaffirming the points made in the article. But there was one comment that caught my eye, and this individual came to the same conclusion as I did. Okay, so this comment was made by Bas Afras, December the 1st of 2016. And he says, but the intelligent design supporters have no problem with speciation. In fact, they eagerly affirm it. Nor would cell-directed natural genetic engineering, rapid speciation provide any difficulty for them. The evolution theory, or the evolution they deny, is the change of kinds, not species. So as many of you might know, we believe that animals, in their genetic genome are confined to remaining similar in their physique. So there are the feline kind, there are the canine kind, okay? But they do not escape this limitation in their genetic genome, okay? And the material that's contained in it. It just changes, diversifies a little bit, okay? So, a dog will always remain a dog. A cat will always remain a cat, or something that looks similar to its previous forms, okay? So, he goes on to say, so I too fell to see how rapid or natural genetic engineering is a challenge to the theist's paradigm. What am I missing? How does the acknowledgement of this prove macroevolution? Does it not just indicate that macroevolution can happen much faster than naturally previously and even currently admitted by neo-Darwinism? Okay, so the proponents of neo-Darwinism believe that microevolution takes billions and billions of years to happen, when we have proof here that it happens far faster than anyone anticipated. And we theists believe that this is perfectly okay with and even proof that a God exists, because everything works according to his design, the way he designed it, and everything works according to that design, which he created spontaneously. He created Adam and Eve and all these animals spontaneously, really. I mean, according to his design. So I'm gonna end this video here, and I'm hoping to hear your remarks and your arguments and beliefs on this issue. And you have a blessed day.